Good to
Hi,
go?
everyone. Welcome to 24 Days of Merrymaking with Michaels. We are so excited to have everyone join us today. My name is, I'll be the moderator today. I'm from Kid Made Modern. So we have partnered here at Kid Made Modern with Tessa. She is from Studio Jane. So you can find her on Instagram at Studio Jane. She makes awesome craft. She's like a craft guru. So she's going to be teaching us how to make paper village wreaths today. And we are very excited to learn from her. So I'll just go ahead and hand it over to Tessa and we can get started.
Hi, everybody. Yes, as Lori said, my name is Tessa, and I'm so excited to be joining you today to be crafting with you. So today we are going to be making these cute little village paper wreaths. So it's not a lot of supplies. We're using paper, some cardboard, felt, and ribbon. So we'll just run through the full supply list real quick for you, and then we'll jump right into all the steps. So first thing we're going to be using is some cardboard. So I have just some leftover pieces from some boxes that I'm using. So we are making the wreath about 10 inches wide. So I would recommend cardboard that's about that size. But if you want to make your wreath bigger or smaller, you can use whatever you have around the home. Or you can also use a piece of paper. So if you don't have any cardboard, feel free to grab a piece of construction paper. That'll work as well. And then we are using
everyone, if you don't mind putting any questions that you might have for Tessa, if you don't mind putting it in the Q&A rather than the chat, that would be great. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Tess.
Great. And then we're also going to be using a variety of different construction paper colors. So as you can see here in our little sample, we've got all different little houses and some little trees that are all made from construction paper, but you can use whatever colors you want to use. So this was the color palette I chose for my wreath, but I would love to see all the colors you guys pick. So definitely feel free to make it your own. And then we'll also be using some felt. So we have a couple different colors of felt. I'm using green for the little leaves on the wreath, and then a red piece of felt for the little bow. But again, your leaves can be any color you want them to be. And then we'll also be using some yarn. So we're using some red yarn to coordinate with our little red bow here. And that's how we're going to hang our wreath. So again, whatever color yarn or string you have, it doesn't have to be yarn. You can also use embroidery thread or a piece of rope, anything to tie a knot that we can hang it on the door or on your wall afterward. And then we'll also need a pair of scissors, a ruler, some paint if you want to paint your cardboard cutout, and some glue. I'm going to be using a white craft glue. You can also use hot glue or glue dots. Whatever you have is gonna should work fine to glue everything together. Okay, so we're gonna dive right in. I'm gonna go ahead and switch my camera here so you guys can see everything that we're doing. Okay, so I like to basically make an assembly line when I craft. So I like to make all my pieces first and then assemble at the end. So to start, our first step is going to be cutting out the actual circle of the wreath. So you can see here, it's just a simple 1-inch round wreath shape. I'm going to show you two different ways to make a circle. So one option is to use a string and 2 pins, which I didn't mention in my supply list there. So grab 2 pins or colored pencils, crayons, anything will work, and your ruler. So I'm going to cut a piece of string here. I'm going to hold my yarn and I'm going to pull it tight and cut a 9-inch piece of string. So we're going to cut that.
Tessa, if they asked if they don't have a ruler, they can measure that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the goal here, we're going to tie this piece of string to our 2 pins that I'll show you right now. So you can also just eyeball that depending on how big you want your wreath to be. So once this is tied, what we're going to do is actually use our pins to draw a circle in this method. So you can just hold your string. It's going to be half of your circle diameter. So if the middle of your circle is here, then you're going to want to make sure that your string doesn't go off of your piece of cardboard or paper.
Okay, great.
So we have 1 9-inch piece and then 1 7-inch piece. And again, you can just eyeball this. This is to make 2 different circles on your piece of paper. And then we're going to tie a little circle here. We're going to tie a knot with our string and put our pin through it and double knot that. You can see now my pin on one side, and then I'm going to use my other pin here. I'm using a dark marker so you can see the mark, but again, you can use a colored pencil or a crayon or just a regular pencil, whatever you have at home is going to be fine. So I'm going to tie another knot on the other side and put my pin tip through that. Oh, losing that there. So you see, just tying a regular knot. And again, putting my pin through there and double knotting it again. So now I have my two pins, you can see, connected. So I'm going to take one pin and put it in the middle of my cardboard. And I'm going to kind of push it into my cardboard. Again, if you're using a piece of paper or if your pin isn't very sharp, you don't have to push it in. You just want to hold it steady in the middle of your paper. And then we're going to take the other one and pull it tight. And we're going to draw a circle all the way around.
Someone has a compass. Would that be able to work just as well, right?
Absolutely. Yes, you can definitely use a compass. This is just a little handmade one that you can use with any sort of material you might have at home. So this is something that you can use even on the wall. People use this method to make giant circles, to paint murals. So this is a skill that you can use in a lot of different ways later. So that's going to be one circle. And then we're going to do the same thing with our larger piece. So now we're going to use the 9-inch piece and we're going to create, again, a little knot on one end, put one end through, double knot that, and on both ends. So this is, again, one way to make a circle. You can also just freehand draw a circle. And then my other favorite way I'm going to show you in just a second. So there's a lot of different ways to make a circle. You can also make your wreath a square or a star or whatever shape you want. So the goal is to have two, basically we're making a donut shape or an outline. So you can create that shape in anything you want. So here again, we're going to just take our pin and go all the way around to create. So now you have a smaller circle and a larger circle. So this is what we're going to cut out both along both lines, and we're going to create a ring. So the other method that I think is a great method to use, and if you haven't done it before, go and find mom or dad and ask them for 2 bowls in 2 different sizes. So I'm going to take one bowl here, and with a marker again, I'm just going to easily trace around my bowl. And there's one circle. And now I have a slightly larger bowl here, and I'm going to put that on top as well. And draw a circle around it. And then you have a full outline there. It looks like I actually made a little mistake here. So I drew my big circle second. So draw your big circle first and then your second circle. So that way you can see that it's even all the way around. So I'm just going to do it again because I'm going to paint this. So it doesn't matter if you have another outline on there. And then that way we now have an even ring all the way around. And then from there, we're going to cut this out. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors here and cut around this cardboard. Cardboard can be a little bit tricky sometimes to cut. So as I cut a piece, you can fold a little bit back and then cut all the way around. You can also use an X-Acto knife. So if you're crafting with a parent, an X-Acto blade will also work. They can be very sharp, so you want to be very careful, but that's another option.
Great. And for those that are catching up right now, I know a few people asked to go a little bit slower. All we've done so far is create 2 circles, one slightly larger than the other on a piece of cardboard, but you can use paper. And somebody asked if you could use a paper plate. Would that work, Tessa?
Absolutely, you can use a paper plate. Yeah, if you have a paper plate, then you can do the same thing, draw a circle in the middle of your plate, And then we're going to cut this line out as well. So you just need basically a paper ring of any kind will work. All right, so we're cutting our large circle out first. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm gonna discard the rest of this cardboard. I always like to hang on to those bits of cardboard. You never know when you're gonna use them in another craft. And next we're going to cut the interior circle line here. And to do that, I like to poke a hole using my scissors. You can also use a pin, or if you don't feel comfortable poking a hole with the scissors, you can always cut through your actual circle here and then tape that back together. But I'm going to just take my scissors and I'm just gonna poke a hole. And then you put one end of your scissors in and cut to your line. And I'm gonna cut a little segment out here to give my scissors some working space.
I think a few people are still catching up on just cutting out the circle, the outside circle. No worries. We're just gonna go along here just to show you the next step, but you can always catch up.
Yes, absolutely. And again, this takes a couple minutes to cut out your circle. If you're using paper, it goes much faster. If you're using cardboard, it can be a little tricky. It's definitely thicker, so it takes a minute to get used to cutting out something so thick. We're just going to keep cutting along the center line. And as we come to the end here, it gets a little bit easier. And then you can see this little segment that I cut out first to give my scissors some room. We're just going to cut that out too. And we have a ring. You can see now we have a ring. Mine is about 1 inch, but you can make yours as thick or as thin as you want it. You just want to have enough space for us to be able to glue some of our little houses and things on. And then again, all these edges, you can always go back with your scissors to trim those up a little bit, make them look a little bit nicer. And then all these pin marks, you can either turn your paper over and then you won't have any, or you can easily paint it, which is what we're going to do next. So I'm going to take this piece of cardboard that we drew a different circle on, and this is what I'm going to paint on. You might have a crafting space you don't have to worry about paint, or a tablecloth, a trash bag, anything you want to put underneath you to make sure you don't get paint on your surface is going to be fine. And then I'm using a gold craft paint, but you can use any color paint you want. I just thought the fun metallic was nice for the holiday season. So I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my extra cardboard here, and then taking a paintbrush, just going to quickly paint over this. And since I used a dark color pen to draw these lines, it might take a couple of coats, but what I like to do is make sure to do a step like this at the beginning of the craft. So even though we're not going to actually use our ring until the end when we assemble everything, this is going to give it time to dry, or that we can check back halfway through and make sure that if it needs another coat, anything like that. So if you wait till the end when you're ready to assemble and then you paint, it's just going to take a little bit longer to let that dry.
Tassel, if they don't have paint, is there other options they can just leave it cardboard, or if they'd like to color it, they could do that with markers as well, correct?
Yes, you can definitely use markers, you can use crayons. Leaving it just a plain cardboard is also cute. You can wrap it with yarn or ribbon. So there's a lot of different options you can do. Or once you cut out your cardboard template, you can use that to trace the same exact shape on a piece of paper and then layer that paper on top. So you can have use a piece of paper as your color instead. All right, I'm just gonna do another quick coat on here. And again, we're probably gonna come back here once this dries to do another coat to hide all of our pin marks. If you used a lighter color pen or a pencil, you probably won't need to do as many coats. But feel free to paint or color it in any way you want. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and set this aside while we let that dry. All right, then moving on from our ring. So I know if that went a little bit fast for some people, don't stress about that. Just take your time to finish cutting out your ring while you watch some of these other steps. All of these little pieces are all gonna be individually cut out. So we're gonna make a lot of different little pieces that then will all be assembled at the end. So just take your time to cut them all together. And then if you don't want to make as many houses, anything like that, if you're feeling like you don't have the time or it's taking a little too long, you don't have to make as many as this is. This is just an example to show you an option. All right, so next we are going to cut out some of our houses, and I'm going to do a couple houses in this craft color, brown color paper, but again, feel free to use any color you want. And then I'm going to use my ruler to get a nice clean line. Again, if you don't have a ruler, you can just freehand draw any house shape you want. That's fine as well. Or you can always use another piece of paper to get a straight line. So to show you how to cut out a house or make a little house shape, I'm going to make a 2-inch wide house. Again, don't feel like it has to be 2 inches wide. You can freehand draw whatever size or shape house you want. So I'm going to make a little mark here at the 2-inch mark, and then I'm going to go up a little higher and do it again. So you can see I have one little mark here, and then I'm going to do another mark at the 2-inch mark. And then using my ruler, I have 2 marks here now. I'm going to line up my ruler between those two and draw a line. So you can see I have one long line, and this is going to be a straight, so I have a straight edge on my house. But again, you can easally draw a shape.
Bring that closer to the camera so we can see it. It's a little bit hard to see.
So here are my 2 marks where I measured from my end of my paper. I measured 2 inches in from my end of my paper, 2 inches in. And that way, when you line your ruler up from these 2 marks, you'll be able to get a straight line all the way down. But again, if you don't have a ruler or you aren't sure about measurements and you just want to go ahead and cut out your own house shapes, you can just draw a house shape as well. So I'm just going to draw a quick house shape here to show you. You can easily draw your own little house shape, and then we're just going to cut those out. So once I have my line here, I'm going to take my ruler again, and I'm going to put it at an angle. Now this is really up to you. So there's no measurement piece. I'm just using the ruler as a straight edge to hold my pin against. So I'm just going to take my ruler and draw a diagonal line, and then do the same thing on the other side, just kind of in the middle of this 2-inch mark. So now you can see I have a little house shape. Again, the one I just quickly drew, it's about the same. This one just has a straighter line, but you can cut it out and you can make your house whatever style you want.
For those of you that are catching up, it's actually quite simple. If you just look at Tessa's sheet, she just made 2 house shapes with both of her angles for the roof. So if you're still cutting, no big deal. We can go back and show you the house shape in a minute.
Yeah, and since we're cutting out multiple houses, this is the first house. I'm going to show you guys a couple more houses. So I'll cut this one out first and then show you a couple other options. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut straight against my lines here. And then again, if you have pencil marks, just flip your paper over and then all those pencil lines are gone. So now you have this cute little house shape. It just has a little triangle top, very simple shape. Again, feel free to just freehand draw that or freehand cut it out if you don't have a ruler or don't want to measure anything out. And then we're going to make a second house very similarly, but we're going to add a little chimney to it. So on the same piece of paper, I'm going to make it a little bit wider so that I can add a chimney to my side. So I'm going to make it 2.5 inches from one end of the paper. So So I have my 2.5 inch mark, and then I'm going to do the same exact technique, go down about an inch or so and make another mark. So here you can see from the edge of my paper, I measured 2.5 inches in and made a mark here, and then moved down about an inch and made another mark. And this is just so you can easily line up your ruler and make a straight line. So I'm going to take my ruler here against both of those marks and draw a straight line all the way down. And then I want my house to be about this tall, which is about 3 inches tall. So I'm just going to make a little line at the top on one side. So I just did one little line. That's going to be the top of my chimney. And then I'm going to take my ruler again and bring that little line. So now I've made a portion of a little box. And then from there, I'm going to draw my roof line again. So I'm going to take my ruler on a diagonal and draw a line. And then from the other side, draw another diagonal line. And there we have a little roof and a little chimney. Again, this is just to have a really straight lines, but you can draw them yourself, or you can make up whatever style house you have. Maybe you want your house to look like yours or your favorite house in your neighborhood. Any style house is going to be fine to draw. And then I'm just going to cut this one out as well. Okay, so now we have 2 houses here. I'm going to make one more house, but I'm going to make it a red house. But I'm excited to see when you guys have mom and dad share all of your photos on social media of what you made, see what color houses you guys made. So I just like red for the holiday season, so I wanted to add some red accents, but maybe your favorite color is pink, or you want this to go in your bedroom and you want it to match. So any color is totally fine. So now I'm going to do the same exact thing as we did with the first house. You can also use whatever house you've already cut out and trace it as a template. So there's a lot of different ways, or you can cut out a completely different house that you drew. So I'm just going to make another little 2-inch, a line, a dot at the 2-inch mark and at the 2-inch mark, and then draw a straight line down. And then just take my ruler and make a little diagonal line to make a roof. And if they aren't perfectly even when you draw them, you can always go back and even it out when you're cutting them, or it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out.
For those catching up right now, just know that she's just repeating steps. Tessa is to create the houses. So the exact houses that we made earlier, she's just recreating, but you can make your own house in any design that you'd like to out of your paper.
Yes, so these are all just different style houses. These guys are just in different colors, but the same general style house. This one has a little chimney, and you can really make any style house you want. Okay, so now that we have our house shapes, again, you can use these as a template. Once you cut out 1 or 2, then you can just trace these as well, just like we traced the bowls when we made our circle. So you can make as many houses as you want. You can even use those little shapes to make little house ornaments or put them on a holiday card. So you can always reuse the same shape you've already cut or drawn out once, and then just keep tracing those. Okay, so next, from our little sample here, you can see, so we have our little house shapes now. And then all these little houses have little doors and windows. So we're going to cut those out of black construction paper. But feel free to use whatever color you want. Maybe you want blue windows. I think that would also be cute. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut a little strip of paper off my edge of my construction paper. So you can see it's about a finger's width. It's not very, very big. And I'm just cut a simple strip. And then from there, I'm going to cut that into little squares. And there's one window. And another window. So now we have a couple different windows. You can see this one I made a little bit small, so you can either cut one down to match it, or if you want your windows to be all different sizes, that could be fun too. So now we have 4 windows for this little house. I've got 2 windows for this one I'm going to do. And then I'm going to cut out a couple more. So again, I'm just going to keep cutting along this same line just to make another little strip of paper. And then I'm going to cut 2 more squares so that the red house can have some windows. And then we're going to make a couple doors. So one door, I'm just going to cut a bigger square. And my square is not perfect. You can go back afterward and you can straighten it out a little bit. You can trace your square first if you want to, but I just went ahead and cut a little shape there, so then that will have a door. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other door. So we're going to cut another square. And this one, again, I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit. Okay. So this door, we're going to make open like this one here. So this makes it look like the door is open. Come on in. Welcome home for the holidays. So we're going to use another piece of paper, a white piece of paper. So you can use any color paper you want to use. You just want to make sure that you're using a different color behind the door so you can see that it's open. If you use the same color, you won't be able to really notice it. So you want something that's contrasting. So since I use black, I'm going to use white paper behind it. And I'm going to trace this so that it is the exact same size. To make another little square. So I'm going to cut this square out. So now I have these two, making sure they're the same size will be able to overlap and you won't be able to see the white. So I'm just going to trim a little bit of the extra edges off. So you won't be able to see it. Now, this part is really easy to do. It's only a couple of cuts. You just want to make sure you don't cut all the way through your paper. So to make an open door, we're going to cut right down the middle, but not all the way through. So I'm going to cut, but my pieces are still connected. You can see there. And then I'm going to bring my scissors up to that line and I'm going to cut toward the corner, but again, not all the way through. So now I have a little line there. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. If you cut all the way through your paper on accident and you cut off a door, just make another square and try again. So now we have this little piece of paper. It looks like this. So I have two little flaps and then a little top that's holding it all together. And then I'm just going to fold the door back.
Hey, Tessa, would you mind repeating that step just one more time for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to fold it back and we've made a little door shape. So let's do that one more time here. So again, I'm going to cut a square. And depending on the size of your house or how big you want your door to be, it can be any size square you want. I just cut an easy little square here. And then I'm going to cut right down the middle. So I did not measuring, I'm just kind of eyeballing the middle of that. So now I have 2 flaps that's still being held together. So again, you don't want to snip all the way through. That way it will create 2 separate doors. This is going to hold it all together. And then I'm going to take my scissors up to that point where I just cut. And I'm going to cut into the corner without cutting all the way through. So again, it's still all connected. And then do the same thing here. So I'm going to move my scissors up and cut into the corner. But again, not cutting all the way through. And then we're going to just fold the little flap we just made back.
So someone had a question about one of your houses again. How many inches is the side of your house? About 3 to 4 inches, you think?
Yeah. This one's about 3 inches tall at the chimney, and it's 2.5 inches wide. And then these ones are about 3 inches tall and 2 inches wide.
Okay, great.
And again, if you want your house to be all uniform, just draw one house and then trace that for the others, or you can just draw any shape house you want. So I think it's fun, just like in your neighborhood, when you go on walks or when you travel places, you can see that all the houses look a little bit different. So I think it's fun for them all to be unique as well. Okay, so then again, you can see folded this back, but we still have the top here to create a door frame and 2 doors. And then that's going to be able to fit on top of the white square we cut out. And as you can see, then it looks like you have a little open door. Okay, so now that we have all these little pieces, we've got lots of little squares and little houses and doors, we're going to glue them all together. So let me grab the glue here. I'm just using a simple white craft glue. I am using it from the Kid Made Modern kit, but you can use any craft glue you might have. Again, hot glue, anything like that. So here's this craft glue I'm using today, just a white glue. And I'm going to put a little bit on a piece of paper, and we're going to assemble all these little pieces on our houses. So I'm going to put a little bit on my piece of paper here so that I can just easily dip my squares into it. Let's see here, get some glue out here for you.
Someone asked if they can use glue dots, and I said for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I love glue dots. There's no mess with glue dots. You don't have to worry about cleanup with them.
Very fast.
Yeah, they're very fast. They stick great to paper and felt. So yes, glue dots are totally fine to use. If you're crafting with a parent or an adult and you want to use a hot glue gun, you can do that as well. So any of those options will be fine. Okay, so I'm going to start with the little red house here. And we're going to glue our little white square first. So I'm just going to use my finger to paint a little bit of glue on the back here. You can use a paintbrush, or you can just squirt some glue straight from the bottle onto your square. I never mind getting a little messy crafting, so I like to use my finger, and I feel like then I know exactly how much I'm using. And then I'm going to use the same glue and just put some on the back of this little black door frame we made. So I'm not putting glue on the flaps that we cut, but flipping it over and just around the edges on the back. And then we're going to put that on top of the white square.
And if anyone's doing this and the inside is a little bit tough for you, don't worry at all. You can just do a plain black door as well. We want your houses to be your own. This is just honestly very, I love Tessa's idea. She always has really, really fun, new, unique ideas that we can use for those.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the other houses we're going to make is just going to have a plain square on it as a door. So you can do that as well. You can just do all windows. So each of these ideas is just an idea. So you can learn how to make it, but doesn't mean you have to use it right now. You might want to use a door like this later if you're going to make a card for someone, or for a dollhouse out of paper. There's a lot of options that you can use this technique later also. Okay, then we're going to add a couple windows to the top of this. So again, just a little bit. You don't need a lot of glue. When you're working with paper, a little bit of glue goes a long way. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back. And then we have 2 little windows and a little door. So that's one house. And then this next house, we're going to do the same thing. So this is a bigger square we cut out. It's just a simple paper square, a little bit bigger than our windows. And we're going to use this as a door. So again, like Lori said, if you don't want to make the cutouts, or you don't feel like you have the time to do that right now, you can just draw a big square and cut that out as your door instead. And then we're going to take another window, a little bit of glue. And I'm just putting all my windows and doors kind of right in the middle of my houses. But if you want your windows to go toward one side or the other, you can really make them your own. And
And for those of you that want to have her show the door again, this will be on Michael's, the link in the chat next tomorrow. So if you'd like to rewatch how she did the open door, you can watch that tomorrow.
Yeah, and once we get through all the steps here and we're assembling, if we have a little bit of extra time, we can definitely go through some of the steps you guys are having questions on at the end. Okay.
And then the little white box too, Tessa, sorry to go back to this, is about 2 inches, correct?
Yeah, it's about it's a little bit smaller, I would say, because our house is about 2 inches. So you can see we have a little bit of space. So about 1.5 inches. But again, it's totally up to you. I just cut a square. I didn't measure that size. I just knew I wanted it smaller than my house shape. So whatever size square you cut, just make sure it's smaller than your house shape so that you still have whatever color paper you're using showing. All right, so for our last house here, we are going to just do 4 windows. So this is another option, another style house that if you don't want to do a door at all, I'm just going to do 4 little windows on this instead. That way I think they all have a little different personality. Even though they're all in the same color family, they all look cute together, but each one is a little bit unique. All right, and so there's a little house. So now we've made 3 little houses, and we're going to set those aside so that we can go ahead and cut out our trees next. So in our sample here, we have 3 little houses, and then we have these 2 little triangle trees. And these are really easy to cut and to make. So you can use a ruler if you want to create a straight edge. You can see here, I'm just using a scrap of green paper, but you can use any color you want if you want your trees to be a different color. I think that's great too. So I'm just going to go ahead and freehand cut. So I'm going to take my scissors and move them at a diagonal and cut. And then from the other end, I'm going to do the same, and I cut out a little triangle. So I'm going to just even this out a little bit. And we have a little triangle shape. So if you want to use a ruler, you can measure it out, but I don't think you need to for these little triangles. They're going to be able to be really easy for you to just cut. And now I'm going to do one taller. So again, just cutting. Here's my straight border. I just cut a diagonal up, and then I'm going to do the same thing from the other side. And then I'm met at the point in the middle. So again, this feels a little bit long on one side, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim it up a little bit. And then we have 2 little triangles. You can also make them mountains if you want to use brown paper, or you don't have to do trees at all. So again, definitely make your little house, your little village your own. So now that we have 3 trees, or 3 houses and 2 trees, we're going to set these here. So again, I like to get all my pieces ready to go. And that way, when we're ready to assemble, it goes together quickly. Now I'm going to check on our ring cutout, since we might need to add another little bit of paint. So I'm going to pull this back up. If you're not painting your ring, then you can go ahead and just skip this step, keep cutting out your houses. And I'm going to add a little bit more paint to my ring to cover up those pin marks. Do we have any other questions yet, Lori?
Some people have some questions on the felt that we haven't quite gotten to yet. Just know that any of the materials that we're using in this, whether it be the cardboard, the paper, or the felt, you can always use alternative supplies, correct?
Absolutely, yes. I think that you can make this wreath using so many materials. So just like this ring, that's the base of our wreath, we use cardboard. You can use paper instead. That's fine. These little houses, if you want to make these out of felt instead of paper, you can do that. You can make them out of cardboard, out of fabric. And then again, we're going to cut out some pieces out of felt next. But if you want to use paper or fabric to cut those out, you can even use stickers or tape and stick tape together to make a surface and cut those out. There's a lot of options to make whatever style you want. So definitely feel free to make your wreath your own. All right. So next, we are going to get to felt. So I'm glad. Good transition there with those questions, guys. So we have felt leaves here and a little felt bow. Again, you don't have to use felt if you don't want to use felt. If you'd rather use paper or a different material, that's fine. Or you can just do the houses if you don't want to do any leaves at all. You can even go and find some leaves or pieces of a pine tree if you want to do that instead, and you can glue on some real leaves from the backyard or from a walk instead. All right, so I'm going to take our green felt here. I'm just using some standard felt. I just like this olive green, but any color you want is fine. These little felt strips come pre-cut in the Kid Made Modern arts and crafts library. So those are really nice and easy to use. But if you have larger pieces of felt, or again, any paper will be fine. All right. So to cut your felt, I just freehand cut some little leaves. So I'm going to show you real quick. You can also draw them on first. So I just am cutting in and then cut out and make a little leaf and then back up again. So I know that might seem a little bit complicated, but it's really easy and you can make any shape you want. So you cut these little tabs basically that will look like leaves once we are done. I'm going to show you how to draw on the felt as well next, but this is showing you how you can just freehand cut as you go and make up your design. So I'm just cutting all these little tabs out of my felt. And then once I get to the top where I'm going to finish it, I'm going to make a little leaf shape at the top and then come back around and do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm going to then just make a little center stem here and then create more of the same little tab shapes that look like leaves all the way down. So as you cut both now, at first it just looked like little tabs or little circles sticking off the edge. But when you do both sides, now it starts to look like a little vine. And this is just the style leaf I wanted to cut out. But if you want to cut out a different style, or you want to do individual little leaves and glue each one on, you can do anything like that as well.
Yeah, somebody was asking if there was a simpler way. And I think just even like one big leaf would work.
Yes.
Just do them individually, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So here's a little vine, but again, yeah, if you want to just do a big leaf shape instead, you're just going to go ahead and cut one big leaf shape. And I'm just doing a really simple leaf design that way it's a little bit easier to cut, and you can cut out multiple of these instead, and we can layer those on instead of a vine. So you can do those as well. And then if you want to trace out or draw out first, then you can take I'm just using a felt end marker. So really any craft marker that has like a soft tip on it will draw on felt. So I can also draw a shape if I want to first, and then cut out. So if you have a certain type you want to cut out, anything else that you want to do, you can definitely trace it out or draw it out first, and then you're just going to cut along those lines. And this is, again, just the style that I thought was fun to do. If you are having some trouble cutting or you want to do something a little bit simpler, then I do think just doing the large leaves. And I would recommend to probably cut about 8 to 10 of these larger leaf shapes in order to fill up the bottom of your wreath. For our little vines, if you're doing little vines instead, then we're going to cut out about 6 vines as well.
And for those that are asking about showing the leaves again, she's just doing those freehand. So what you see there with the vine and the leaf, that's just cut freehand. So a leaf can be any shape you want it to be. It could be a vine, it could be a big leaf, anything that if you have green felt or any sort of color of felt or paper, that works great.
Yes, absolutely. And you can do a combination of leaves too. So you don't have to just do one style. If you want to cut out a lot of different styles and layer those all on together, we can do that also. So I'm just going to cut out a couple more of these little vine shapes. Again, like Lori just said, I'm just freehand cutting them. And obviously I've cut them out before, so I had a little bit of a plan going into this to know how to cut them out, but you can really just cut a straight line and then take your scissors on a diagonal and cut a little half circle and then come back in. And you're going to make all these little pointed leaf shapes. And then from there, go up straight again. And then when you get to your top, you're going to do again a little half circle shape, create a point and go back down to make the same shape on both sides.
Someone asked if they could use real pine trees, and I think that's great. If you have any sort of garland around your house, do you want to include that on your wreath? That would be really pretty as well.
I think that would be beautiful. Yeah. And yeah, ask mom or dad if there's some extra pine, maybe if you have a Christmas tree, if there's some extra pieces, or you can go and collect some leaves that you like from the yard. Anything like that would be really pretty.
Also, if you guys have larger size felt, just cut it down so it can be just a smaller size. So I know that Tessa's using her felt strips that she has from her Kid Made Modern kit, but also any sort of felt or paper you have, even if it's a larger size, you can just cut it down.
Yes, absolutely. So you can cut it down into smaller pieces that are easier to work with, or you can just cut out the shapes from the larger piece as you work. So these ones, when you have a smaller piece, sometimes it's easier to cut with. That way you don't have so much extra paper or fabric in your way as you're cutting. So I like to cut pieces down a little bit smaller, even if they came larger, and that way you don't have all this extra pieces that are in the way of your scissors. Okay, I'm just gonna cut out one more here. And again, you can cut out as many leaves as you want if you want a lot. In this sample, we just did some leaves, the little vine leaves at the bottom, but if you want to go all the way around with your leaves, or you just want to add one or two, any of those would be really pretty. And again, I like a green leaf, so that's what I chose to do, but I would love to see what colors you guys use. You can also do more little houses. So maybe you don't want to do any leaves, but you want to do lots of little triangle trees or more little houses all the way around. So there's a lot of options there. All right.
The mountains that you made, or the trees, mountains, yes. I'm sorry. How big are those? Are those about?
These guys are about, so I have two different sizes. One is about 3 inches tall, and at the bottom is about 2 inches wide. So if you cut at the bottom and then you're going to cut a diagonal to meet at the same point. And this one's a little bit smaller. So this one's only about 2 inches tall and about 1 inch wide.
Great, thank you.
And these ones, I didn't use a template or trace anything. I just went ahead and cut a little triangle shape out of my paper, but you can always draw a triangle first. And it just creates a really simple little shape for a tree. Okay, so we have some leaves here now, ready to go. We're gonna now cut out our little ribbon. So this is, again, I'm just drawing all these items as we go. So yours is gonna look a little bit different, and I think that's what makes each of these special and makes it know that you made it if you're gonna hang it in your home or give it as a gift. So I'm going to draw a little bow shape on my felt. So I'm just, again, using a piece of red felt, but use whatever color you want to. And then I'm going to draw a triangle style bow. So I'm drawing a little triangle, a little hump in the middle, and then another triangle. And then 2 lines at the bottom to make little ribbon. So you can see it's not a very good drawing. It's very simple, easy. It's just a few different shapes, but then when we cut it out is when we can add all the detail to it. So you can also do a large bow if you want to do a round bow instead. You can even do a piece of ribbon instead of drawing a felt bow or a piece of yarn. So any other thing like that will work. And then we're going to just go ahead and cut this out. So again, I'm going to cut away the larger piece of felt I'm not working with. And then I can easily cut along the lines I just drew. And I'm going to...
Our watcher Chloe had exactly the same thought I did, if she could use a mini real bow. And I think absolutely, if you have a bow around your house from gift wrap, that would look awesome as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think a bow, like you said, from gift wrap or some extra ribbon. If you have a hair bow you're not using, anything like that will also work. And there is a little bow shape. If you want to cut yours at an angle to give it a little extra look, that's cute too. And then you can see where I drew mine, I still have all the lines on my felt, but when I flip it over, you can't see any of those tracing lines. All right, so we now have all of our pieces that we need to assemble. So we've got our houses, we've got our trees, we've got all of our little leaf cutouts. Again, any leaf style you're using is going to be adorable. And then I have a little bow here. So we're going to assemble. So I'm going to bring back my cardboard ring that we cut and painted. If you didn't paint yours or you're using paper instead, all of that's going to be just fine. This is pretty much all dry now. So again, a good idea to always, things that are going to dry or take longer to dry, like paint or glue, I always like to do those steps first. So now we have our ring here and we're going to start assembling. So we are going to take our houses and assemble them first onto our ring. So I'm just going to layer them together here. They're all kind of overlapping. You can see at the bottom, they all just overlap the ring a little bit, and they don't have to be sitting there perfectly. Our leaves are going to be overlap the houses then as well. So we're going to start with the 2 that are on the back and just rub a little bit of glue along the bottom. So I'm not covering the whole back since only the little bit on the bottom of the wreath is going to be sticking. So I just did a little smear with my finger and I'm going to press that into the wreath. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So since I want my houses to overlap, I'm doing the first 2 that are on the back, and then the red house is going to sit in the middle. So now I'm going to, again, just press that onto the bottom of my wreath. So now you can see I have 2 little houses sitting on the bottom of my wreath. And then I'm going to take my middle house and put it right in the middle.
If your ring is not dry yet, don't worry at all. Let it dry. All we're doing right now is assembling it. So you can just watch Tessa right now. And then once your ring is dry, you can go back into assemble.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, wait till your ring is all the way dry. If you paint it, if your paint isn't dry quite yet, that's okay. And then, yeah, you'll just be able to assemble it all in a minute as soon as your ring dries. I definitely would wait till it's dry so you don't get paint on your other elements of your little house. Okay, so now we're going to do our trees. And we're going to do the same method to glue them on, just a little bit of glue along the bottom. And then I'm going to slide it slightly behind the little house. There's one. And then the second one. You can just put a little swipe of glue at the bottom. And then I'm going to overlap it on that same tree. So now as you can see, this little tree is hanging over the edge a little bit, but that's okay because the leaves are going to cover that up. Or if you aren't using felt leaves, and you can still let it just hang over and it has a cute look still. All right, now to add our felt. So I'm going to add a little bit more glue on my extra scrap paper here. And you can, again, use glue dots or hot glue. When you're working with white craft glue and felt, it does get a little bit wet sometimes, and that just means it's going to take a little longer to dry. So once we're done with assembly, I would leave it for a few minutes to let it all dry. So I'm just going to, again, take my finger here, and I'm just going to dab on a few little pieces of glue. And then take this and lay it along the bottom. And that's going to be the same method for all of your leaves, whether you're using large leaves or real leaves or pieces of a tree. Anything you do, you're just going to go ahead and take a little bit of glue and then press it onto the wreath overlapping.
Cute. And as Tessa's finishing off gluing, just a couple reminders too. If you crafted with us today, we would love, love, love to see your creations. So make sure and hashtag make it with Michaels, hashtag Michaels classes, and also hashtag go make stuff. We would love to see your finished products. And also just a heads up, we'll show you at the end of class, but Tessa has another upcoming class next Monday. So we'll show you the craft if you're interested in signing up for that as well.
Yes, like Lori said, please tag everyone when you have mom and dad, share all of your creations. I love seeing what you made and all of the things you guys come up with inspire us with new ideas and colors. So it's so fun that even though we aren't together, we are crafting together still. And I can't wait to see everything you guys make. All right.
Someone said there's a small, so it can be an ornament. Yes, I would love this as an ornament. It would be very cute.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I just went ahead and put another little vine up the top here. So now you have your little leaf shapes going all the way up. Again, if you're using a single leaf cutout instead, you would do the same thing and instead just do 4 or 5 along each side and glue those on. And now we're going to take our little felt bow and stick that right in the middle. So now we have a whole little wreath. All we need to do is add our yarn at the top, and then it's going to be ready to hang. So let's grab a little bit of yarn here. I've got some ready to go. So again, I'm using a piece of red yarn so that it matches my little bow at the bottom, but you can use any color yarn you want. And then we're just going to, take one end here, and I'm going to leave about 6 inches at the top. So I have like a 6-inch tail here that I'm not using, and I'm going to use the rest, and I'm going to wrap it around my ring. Again, if your ring isn't dry yet, I would wait a couple of minutes, let that dry so that you don't smear your paint or get paint on your ribbon. So I wrapped it around a couple of times just so it adds a little bit of a thicker look there. You can also use a piece of ribbon or twine, anything else you might have. And then I'm going to tie a simple knot. And then I'm going to take both of my tails here and tie them together. So now I've created a large loop here, and I'm just going to cut off the remaining yarn. And then you have an easy way to hang your wreath. And that's all the steps. I know that we went through that a little bit quickly, and some of these are time consuming, like cutting out all these little leaves, but you can take your time. Now you can see how to assemble it all together. And like Lori said, it's also going to be recorded and on the Michaels website tomorrow. So you can go back and watch any steps you might have questions on. But I'm so glad that we were able to craft together today. And I hope you guys enjoyed making little wreaths. Do we have any other remaining questions, Lori, that we can answer quickly?
No, I think that we are actually pretty good. Thank you so much, everyone, for crafting with Kid Made Modern and Tessa today from Shop Studio Jane. Make sure to check her out on Instagram. And again, do you want to show us our craft for next Monday?
Yes, absolutely. So Monday we will be crafting again, and we're going to be making these adorable little tassel trees. So
cute.
these are all little yarn trees, and we're going to frame them with cardboard or paper. So these are going to make great gifts, or again, really cute ways to decorate for the holidays.
Yeah,
so
so
we're excited to craft with you guys soon.
Yeah, so make sure to check out Michael's website for their 24 days of merrymaking, and check out Tessa's upcoming classes with Kid Made Modern as well.
Yes, thank you so much, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.